Hello, how's everyone doing? Back again, hello. So this particular chat with a blog, has got a blog to go with it, was inspired by Rachel's Friday morning chat last week when she talked about not magic. And we suddenly realised that actually at KW we hadn't got a great deal on it. There was that chat that Rachel did on Friday. Rachel had also done a Witch's Ladder YouTube recording and also a very short one about knots, both of which will be attached to the end of the blog for anybody that wants to go and find those, but they are on her YouTube channel, Rachel Patterson, Witch and Author YouTube channel. But yes, it got us thinking that actually, oh, there's a gap in our kitchen witch, because knots and not magic is so easy, so versatile. I would say it's almost easier and more versatile than candles. And to me, candle magic is one of my go-tos. So I'll start by saying, anybody that's watching this, how many of you sew? How many of you quilt? Anybody a knitter? Anybody does crochet? I can see you all sitting there wondering what I'm on about. What about weaving and spinning? Anybody do that? And who has made friendship braids? If you do any of those things, you are doing not magic, because I can virtually guarantee that if you are any of those things, you have made a gift for, if not yourself, then numerous other people. And while you've been making that item, you have been thinking about that person and putting your intention for that person, thinking about them, loving them as you've been doing it. You've done not magic. There you go. It's not the end of the talk. Sorry. You thought that was going to be it. Anyway, because we realised there was a little bit of a gap, and actually, do you remember the cotton hankies? I'm going to have to put this in the blog. Do you remember the cotton hankies? For those of you who are of a certain age, that we never went out of the house. Mother would always shout, "Have you got your hanky?" And it was those cotton hankies, and you either had them in a pocket or tucked in a strategic bit of elasticated something. And if, you know, your mum said, "Oh, can you pop to the local shop and get so-and-so?" Tie a knot in your hanky. You tied a knot in the end, in the corner, one of the corners of your hanky, to remind you why you were going. Not sure it entirely worked, but there's another little bit of knot magic that's just a folklorish sort of little thing that just popped into my head. Yeah, so anybody that remembers that, pop a comment in if they remember doing that or being told that. Anyway, so yeah, I did a little bit more delving. It does go back further than, you know, I know I'm ancient, but it does go back further than that. If you actually think about threads and weaving and yarns, they actually follow us through our entire existence. Knots were probably, I mean, I read one article where the scholar, I can't think what his name is now, but he's one of those archaeologists. Name's gone. Anyway, and he actually postulated that knots might have come before fire in our evolution. Interesting thought. Interesting thought. Nettles. Nettles, even now, people make cords out of nettles. It's just, it's part of us. We knot all the time without even thinking about it. As I say, for those of us that crochet or knit or sew, we're doing it all the time without even thinking about it. But you can follow it back through history. You've got the fates, you've got the moirai from the classical eras of Rome and Greece. You've got the Norse weaving people's fates. Weaving is very much linked to the feminine energy. And I don't mean that as just being women, because men knit and crochet and always have done. But it's seen as more of a... There was an article where it said that weaving and spinning of yarns especially was seen as quite sinister by some of the early Christian churches, which is interesting, because how on earth would they have got their things to wear if they didn't allow people to spin and weave? But yeah, that was quite interesting, how it was seen as sinister, because they thought things were being, ill wishes were being weaved in, which is another interesting thing, because you think about the Book of Kells, you think about the other medieval manuscripts, all of which have got the most beautiful calligraphy and artwork around the edges of the pages, now known as Celtic knotwork. So it's also been thought by one of these scholars that those knots followed through, because the monks were originally from these pagan communities out in out in the countryside, so they would have known about that, and they think that it wasn't just the pretty patterns, it was the fact that the monks may have, we don't know, may have thought that evil entities that would try to use these spiritual words were caught in the knots on the edge of the pages, so they couldn't get to the words. Because as we know, words are very important. Words make spells, spelling, etc. So whether that is the case or not, of course, we will never know. But yes, it's interesting because they also used that same artwork around when they were copying down the oral traditions as well. So it wasn't just that they were protecting the Bible or the spoken word of God, or however they thought of it, but they were also protecting those other texts that they were being given orally to maintain, if you like. So yeah, all very interesting. It was fascinating actually doing this. I'm just making sure that I haven't forgotten anything before I actually I have got a little demonstration. It's only a very little one. Oh yes, so how many of you put away, say, your lights at Christmas or cables wound up in a drawer, your jewelry chains, you put them in your jewelry box all nice and neatly, don't touch it for however long, come back and they are a tangled mess. Cords have a life of their own, a mysterious life all of their own. Now, whether it is the house spirits, or whether it is pixies, or whether it is just the fact the cords managed to get themselves tangled up in some way or totally on their own, who knows? But yeah, another interesting little sideline, do cords have a life of their own? I shall leave you to think about that. As I say, it is fascinating. There are probably as many ways to do knot magic as there are people doing it, if not more. I found so many variations on the very simple knots. So there's the simplest, other than the hanky, knot in the corner, is that you get a piece of cord and you tie 3, 6, 9, 12. That was the one consistent thing. They were all multiples of 3 knots. But how you did it, you could start at one end and work your way along, either end. You could start in the middle and then go to the ends and then work your way in. You could start in the middle, go to one end, come in, go to the other end, come in. The variations on just that one where you just tied these multiples of 3 knots in a length of cord. Just phenomenal. Coming back to 3, whether this is what's carried on or whether it's just a multiple of 3, then the vulva, the seer of Norse magic, used to sell cords with 3 knots in to sailors before they went out on their journeys, having captured the winds. So the first knot, the sailor would untie if he just wanted a gentle breeze. The second knot he'd untie if he wanted something a bit stronger. And the third knot he could untie if he wanted a gale force. But yeah, that is documented, that the vulva did actually sell these cords with 3 knots on to the sailors before they started out on their journeys. So that's interesting. Whether that's what's carried on through with the multiples of 3, I haven't got a clue. And there didn't seem to be any reference to that. But it was just, when I said 3, it just came to mind. But yeah, there's, as I say, as many practitioners doing it, there's probably variables. And then there's the wording, because some people just use the same thing on each knot. Other people use, by knot of 1, the spell's begun. I've got it here. By knot of 2, the magic comes true. By knot of 3, so shall it be. But even that seemed to be the one that I found the most often. But even that had variations. That's just the one I found most often. But there are variations, and it goes up to the knot of 9, when what is done is mine. The one where you say the same thing on each knot, again, this is the one that I found most consistently, but there are other variations. I tie the knot and set it right. I tie it true and tie it tight. I tie the knot and count to 9. Now the thing I want is mine. And you say those 4 lines on each knot. The other thing that was consistent was about whether you said it in your head, whether you said it out loud, you did have to say something. You were putting your intention, you were breathing your intention. So even if you say it, you breathe into the knot what your intention is. So the breathing in and the saying or thinking, if you can't say out loud, if you're in the middle of somewhere and you're doing a knot for something, you might not be able to say it out loud. But if you're thinking it, you're breathing, looking down, and you breathe into the knot as you make it. I would love it if people would come in under this with their variations. Another one that I saw was where the person did the multiples of 3, but they only used 1 sentence because, and this rang true for me, because anybody that's seen these before knows it's got to be simple, because otherwise I get very confused. So what she did was she did the 9 knots, but she said exactly the same thing on each knot, and it was just 1 sentence. So I think she gave the example of protection. My house is protected. So it was like an affirmation. My house is protected. Was it herself? Can't remember. That was about protection. But and she said that's what she did when she undertook any knot magic. She had 1 sentence, and she said it each time that she'd made a knot. But yeah, come in underneath and let me know what you do. So I said right at the beginning of this waffle about friendship bracelets, and this is so friendship bracelets are basically an uneven number of embroidery threads of colours, because there's colour magic. You can bring colour magic into all of this as well, depending on what your intention is. So you do it in again, it's either got to be 3, 5, 7, 9. You can make them as wide as you like. But the colours are to do with, I chose these because this is actually going to go in my hair. It's quite a long one, and it's only got 3. So I will show it to you eventually. And what you do is you just keep repeating the knot. So you bring that one over, tuck it under, and tie it tight. bring it over, tuck it under, pull it through, tuck it tight. And the same for the next one. Now, believe it or not, I had actually never done this as a child. I was actually shown this about 18 months ago and haven't looked back since. I just find it very interesting that as you are tying this, so this is, I'm not telling you what this is exactly for. It's going to go in my hair, but it is for me to wear. Just use a bobby pin to tie it up. And you just keep going for as long as you want to. But yeah, I hadn't ever done this as a child or as a young adult. And I was shown this. And as I say, it's so I'm just going to do this a bit more slowly. So you take over, under, pull, over, under, through, pull. Next one, over, under, through, pull, over, under, through, and pull. Like that. And you just keep going and you get this lovely line of colours. The first few always, as you start it off, always look a little bit rackety. I was warned about that by the person that showed me. Susie Goose, Susie Edwards, for those that know her, is the person who showed me how to do this. And she said to me, they will all, the first few will always look a little bit rackety, but once you get going on the pattern, you just keep going until you feel that it is done. And all the time you are knotting. Your intention into, whether it's a bracelet, a necklace, if you make it wide enough you can use it as a belt. There we go. So I'm happy with that. Now I'm just going to tie a knot so that they don't unravel. Lost. Yeah. There's always one that ends up shorter than the other, and I don't know how that happens because they all start off, I cut them all exactly the same length, but every time I do this, see how the brown one's shorter than the other two? Still yet to figure out how that happens, but there we go. I'm just trying to make sure that I get all three of them. There we go. Pull through, tie the knot. Now the other part of this is, because you're pulling on it quite strongly, what Susie showed me to do is to use a safety pin and tuck it into, this is just a wicker basket that I used, or if you've got a cushion, you attach it to the cushion. But yeah, so at the top of it, I made a loop before I started. Then I started my weaving. And so the bobby pin will go through this and then it'll attach into my hair. And I've done some knot magic, and that took me just a little while this morning just to start that off, so you didn't have to sit and watch me doing the whole thing. But yeah, it is. So yeah, that'll go somewhere in my hair with a bobby pin. I hope this is interesting to people. Please let me know in the comments. Please let me know in the comments if you know any other variations of the chants. I will say the full, I'm just going to get it up again, hold on, there we go. So by knot of one the spell's begun, by knot of two the magic comes true, by knot of three so shall it be, by knot of four this power is stored, by knot of five my will shall drive, by knot of six the spell I fix, by knot of seven the future I leaven, by knot of eight my will be fate. By knot of 9, what is done is mine. But yeah, as I say, I saw some other variations on that. That was the one that came up most often. But yeah, it's just a fascinating subject, really. So yeah, come in below with your what do you do for knot magic? What chants do you use? How do you do your knots? And if you are a weaver, spinner, crocheter, knitter, anything along those lines, tell us what you've made. You don't have to tell us why you made it, but yeah. Yeah. As I say, hope this has been interesting. There is going to be a blog about this over on the Kitchen Witch Half website. So if you want to see the chat, the bits that I've missed out of the chat, which I'm sure I will have done by the time I sit down and write this, I'll think of other things to jot in, like I just did about the hanky. But yeah, and also it'll have the links to the other talks and a book. There is a book on knot magic. It's by Tacluan Penry. It's a very good book. That was the only book that I could find actually on knot magic, and I have got it. I just haven't got it here, which was probably very remiss of me. But yes, it's by Tacluan Penry. It's from Wolfenhow Press. You can get it on Amazon, and it is a very good book. So yeah, hope this has been interesting. Let me know what you've done, what you think, and if you know different rhymes, different chants, then please share them. And I will see you next time.